This conference will now be recorded.
Are you the Big Lebowski?
You're already bowling tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, it's tonight's okay.
All right,
See, next week you'll be gone.
I'll call the meeting to order. We have quorum. And is there a motion to adopt the agenda as stated?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as stated.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. Carries 5-0-0. Approval of the March 14th minutes. Everybody had a chance to look at them?
We approved the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. No public hearings. We'll talk about this other thing in number 7. 6, new business annexation. Kurt.
Yeah, so I'm sure many of you know that the land being used for the Christ Lutheran School has been annexed by the city for a while. So what I'm going to go to the Zumbrota Township tonight is tell them of the annexation of just the north side of 460th Street, as you can see here in the gray. It's just from the center of the road going out 33 feet, which I believe would be a easement or a right of way.
Is that because the other annexation only went to the center line of the road?
Okay, because that's Pine Island Township down there. It's the dividing line. And so Zumbrota Township, and we'll learn about that tonight. You can see where it is there on the maps. I don't know if you have any questions on it.
The
But once
city would be responsible for the whole road then.
Yep. So that would be
Wholly
a city
responsible.
road all the way out. You can see where it ends right there.
City would be
I
there.
remember, I'm mixing that up with 9th Street, which we know
Yeah, it's an extension of 9th Street.
it's not though, is it?
Well, from there you.
This goes out east.
How the
Right.
zigzag is? Look at this map.
So you can see
Yep.
the chunk of land
Going
down is
back.
going to be
The
the
north side.
school. And this is just on the north side of it.
Yeah.
Down here it says Christ Lutheran Church on the south side.
Right.
Okay.
So previously, when we annexed, and I don't even remember annexing that, but I'll believe you. So that went to the center line of the road, so we're just going on the other side. But 9th Street, just to be clear, we still only the sort of the south half of 9th Street, still township, isn't it? But we agreed to maintain it. Remember that? Oh, you weren't here.
It wasn't there.
Does
When
that
you say
make sense?
which one's 9th Street?
This one here.
Matt, is that where it kind of goes to gravel, or is it still gravel back up there, or is it?
Yeah.
So the gravel is, we maintain it, but it's.
Half of it's township. I'm sorry to throw gas on the fire. I just want to make sure that I remember that correctly, that on the other side of like the Wobig property,
Right.
that half of the road facing west is still owned by or still township, right?
You know,
The land that's owned by.
I want to say it's been annexed by the city as well.
I know we have an agreement with the township, we'll maintain it.
Okay.
Because remember when we were dealing with Wobig, yep. I remember the
Okay.
township brought Dick Gorman over here and they just, all they cared about is that they didn't have to maintain half the road. But I think the owner is still Ken Berg on that side, right back behind the Lloyd Johnson property. And I think that's still township.
So the Wobig side is city. So you can see on the map, the line going right down the road there. Because that little triangle just west of the annexation is still not a part of the city. It's like yeah, it's still township, right? This little triangle is not a part of the city.
That's the road that you were talking about.
Oh, like, okay.
And that's still township,
This little triangle right here.
still township.
There. I'm trying to get to the map here.
Is he talking about that little triangle right there?
We had a meeting today about all the different things that go into it, so I'll be typing up a development agreement with this chunk of road as long as it goes, well, I'll be meeting at 7 o'clock with them. Zimbrota Township to finalize it.
And that is one of the primary purposes, other than that we're going to assume maintenance of the road is for utilities, and we get to use both sides then. Yeah.
But from today, what they say, a majority of, is it the sewer or water goes down the middle of the road?
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of them goes down the middle, because, and my question is, why do that? Wouldn't it be easier to get to it in the ditch? But then you gotta think about all the snow in the ditch, which I did not think about at the time when I asked the question. So it's easier for them in the winter to access water and sewer.
And freeze.
And they're not right next to each other. They're separate.
They're going to pave that eventually, or?
I think the goal is, I don't wanna say yes, they're going to.
That road is in terrible shape. Yep, goes right, extension of my house. It's not good.
Yeah, I wanna kind of mind instead, it's really.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that is what, pretty much all on the agenda for today was just to give you guys a heads up on that.
Do we have to take any action on it, or recommend it, or, okay?
It's more of a council thing, but, I don't even know if they need our recommendation, because they have to make findings that whether it meets the requirements of annexation by ordinance. So I guess you're right, it's just FYI.
Colored as the city, so that.
Oh, got it. I'd absolutely, yeah.
So Bev 190th Ave is an extension of
That
9th
little
Street,
triangle
then, is
is-
that
it's
right?
this triangle is-
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause that's
Yeah.
that's at Ken Berg's.
Yeah.
That's still
Still in township.
in the township. Yep, yep, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Hi, good.
So what were you reading me with about the township tonight? What will be discussed?
Just tell them what it is, where it is, and just to give them a heads up on it. There's no financial compensation in any way, nothing dealing with taxes. And from what I've heard, it should be well received, because that means the city will take care of that road, the whole road from that point on.
So you'll tell the township tonight that we're going to annex that in, right?
So,
Apparently, as far as their property goes,
Oh, wherever that property
yeah.
is. And then at that point, just go back to gravel.
Public Works
Or
Commissioner.
maybe gravel.
He's very good at
Well, the
answering.
Township's problem.
Okay, anything else on that? Nope. All right. Then just under number 7, I'll just bring you an update on the Jen Schumann garage. Remember, when was that? When the planning commission had a meeting and recommended approval for the height conditional use permit and all the different facets of that structure. Was that January?
Maybe maybe 2 meetings ago.
This is our last meeting.
Was it?
January was that said we could
Right,
let this go.
right. And then after that, Schumann's attorney emailed Brian and said, we're still not happy with the size, which was, I think we were under the impression, we were going under the ordinance that it needed to be match the footprint of the house, which is what, 1,100? About?
Yeah.
And then we agreed to make an additional concession to add another 10%, and that brought it up to about 1,200 square feet. And we agreed to concede on the height going all the way up to 21 and a half,
Height of the
right?
house.
Yeah, which is close to the height of the house. And then the attorney emailed Brian and said, not good enough. We want, we don't think the ordinance your ordinance governs the footprint of the building only covers R1 and R1A and not R2, which is John's. So they're still challenging our square footage limitation of 1,220 or whatever it was. And they claimed that the ordinance is ambiguous on the number of outbuildings, because we said, if we allow this, we want you to take away all of your smaller little structures except this building, and you're allowed one more under the ordinance, 2 detached buildings. So they're challenged that too. So then I've emailed, going back and forth and trying to pin them down on what exactly it was unclear how big of a building John wanted as far as square footage. And he finally came back and said 28 by 48? 28,
1344 square
yeah,
feet.
so that's 1344 square feet, which is, let's see, we said 110.
1245.
1,100 times 1.1. I think we conceded about, what was it, 1210 last time? Something like that. So you take away 1210 square feet from 1344. It's an extra 134 square feet, which if you look at a 28-foot wide garage, I made 28, be an extra 5 feet more than what we had allowed in length. And Brian is willing to concede that, I guess mainly because of the size of the lot. And so I guess the question is if we want to maybe finally get this moving ahead for John, whether we want to recommend that and get it in front of council so they can approve the height conditional use permit, and under these requirements that he can build a 1,344 square foot structure. And then I think Brian does not want to concede on the number of outbuildings, so there needs to still be a condition that he bring it down to 2. So, I mean, even though this wasn't,
So the new shed plus 1.
Yeah.
And still would have to match the house as far as the look.
Yeah.
And no taller than the house.
yeah, I think at that January meeting, we set a height of 21 and a half
21.6,
feet
yeah.
or something, yeah. So, I know we're missing a couple of members, but if we want, I don't have a problem addressing this now and trying to get in front of council so that maybe John could start building a shed.
So essentially, it's the motion we passed in January, except we would allow an extra 100 square feet or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Works for me.
And now we're back down to only 2 buildings, a new barn and
Well,
another shed.
Yeah, I mean, that has to be
Yeah.
a condition. And my thought is, let's make it contingent on, we won't even issue a building permit until those buildings are out of there. But I think we talked about it in January. No, he needed that for storing whatever he's storing. So he didn't want to get rid of those other 4 sheds until this new structure's up. Then he can,
I don't think he wants to get rid of them at all.
no, he doesn't want to.
No, do you think he will get rid of them? Do we have to have a consequence if, when they don't come down? We need a deadline on when they will
Yep,
come
we
down.
did. I think
We
we
had
gave,
something in it.
we give him 90 days. The question is 90 days after completion of construction of the new building, or I can't remember if it was 90 days from another date. But I think that was one of his points, is he wanted the structure, the new structure complete before he started getting rid of those other buildings. And, if we want to put a timeline on it after completion of construction, that's
Pretty
okay.
wide open. I mean, if they had a door yet they had to go on, anything could stop it from being
Say
completed.
30 days after completion.
But-
Substantial completion.
Yeah,
That's what she said.
Like you said, yeah.
Substantial completion, that's a pretty common term. I mean, if he intentionally leaves the door off, we're going to say this is substantial completion.
we need to have a clause in there, something about.
And I guess if, let's just assume worst case scenario, he doesn't do it, then I guess we just have we cite him with a zoning violation. It'd be nice to use the shed as leverage, but the shed will be up and then we'd have to,
So Matt, would I type up this 90-day and then do I post it? So, I mean, how would he know that he's got 90 days?
or what Tom
What makes
proposed.
it official?
We want to do 90 days after he starts or 30 days after he's substantially complete?
We said 90 days after he's substantially complete originally.
Well, then we can revisit it. So if we want to go 30 days after substantial completion, that's,
I'm just saying, what makes it a legal document that was just keep it in my notes?
yeah, that would be our motion to council and,
Council's gonna be
I mean, you could tie it to, one of the things was John's attorney, and I don't want to get too in, well, no, I can disclose this without disclosing attorney-client privilege, but John's attorney was trying to segregate or separate our actions in January so that the height issue was a standalone thing and it wasn't tied to the other items. And my position was, no, this was a package deal. So we consented or conceded a little bit on the square footage and the height. And now after the fact, they were trying to hold us to, no, you agreed on the height, you're done, you can't revisit that. And now we still want our square footage and we still want 6 extra buildings out there. And it's like, no, that wasn't the way we had discussed it. So we could make this, even though it'd be an after the fact item, the requirement that he remove those items within 30 days after substantial
I know that was
completion.
discussed at that last meeting in January.
Yeah, but we could either make that a part of the conditional use permit, or it's just a separate, I mean, it's in our zoning ordinance, and I disagree with them wholeheartedly that that's ambiguous and it's not enforceable. But we could make that, we could revisit the conditional use permit on the height and say contingent upon number 1, square footage no greater than 1344. Number 2, he gets rid of the other 4 sheds within 30 days after substantial completion, all tied into that conditional use permit.
Well, those were all included in the motion, so to me, that's a package anyway.
Right. They're just making arguments. You know how lawyers are.
Well, what happens if he were to just let it get built the way he originally wanted it built and not say anything, and it turns out to be what he
Well,
originally
he has to
wanted?
apply for a building
I can
permit.
see him doing that.
He has to apply for a building permit and he'll bring in his specs. And then building inspector will make sure that it's built according to what he proposed, right?
Okay. And then they do an inspection and everything too.
Yep, there would be inspections. Yeah. I think only if it's under 120 or 144 square feet, then it's not subject to code or building permit approval.
So do we need to rescind that motion we passed in January and then pass a new motion saying what we think?
Or modify, yeah,
And what's the simplest way?
either or works.
Well, I'll make the motion, I'll go on record. I'll make the motion that we rescind the motion made in January to say that we're allowing for a building height of 21.6, not to exceed the height of the existing house. That the finish of the shed matches the existing house. That the outbuild, we're allowing for 1,344 square feet, and that the outbuilding is exceeding the zoning ordinance be removed within 30 days after substantial completion of the structure.
You say 30 days?
Yes, after substantial completion.
Good.
Okay, I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Did we get everything covered?
Trying to remember what else was in, that we dealt with in January. I think those were the main issues.
Those were the main issues.
I have an update before we end the meeting. So for the last few months, I've been working on tiny homes or just like cottage homes.
Well, we better vote first. I'm
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you didn't vote.
Yeah, we
I thought you
didn't.
vote.
No,
Yeah.
Okay.
we're still in discussion.
Oh,
but-
sorry.
No,
I'm
you're
sorry.
good.
Maybe he wants to put a tiny home out there too.
Yeah, right? Okay.
With the amount of land he has,
And then use it for
definitely.
storage.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, carries 5-0-0. So I guess the way this was done is way back last fall. It was a motion for, it was a variance request that got denied by planning commission, denied by council. Council then threw it back to staff.
Mhm.
Staff then wanted planning commission input on this, especially because of the height variance under using a conditional use permit. So staff can't just do that on their own. So I guess now it's kind of a motion we've made on our own as opposed to based on a request from John. But it's still basically a recommendation of council.
I was think we should have it shown in the minutes that we're allowing this extra square footage because of the extraordinary size of this lot.
Yeah,
We should make that for the record.
yeah, I think that's always been kind of the argument, right? And the height.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because of the size of the lot.
So 10 years from now, they go, what in the heck were you thinking?
Believe me, you know, I mean, sometimes I wish I haven't been here so long because you get new turnover of staff and then they look at what was done 20 years ago and they're like, I would have never done that. It's like, you weren't here.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we're at. All right, now we're on to other, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So I've been working on the tiny homes or like the cottage homes. Dylan was working on it last year. And there's just like a lot of discussion specifically about the lots. We chose like 2 lots for them. I can't remember. Do you remember where they were, Kurt? But they were like large enough to have like 10 tiny homes. And they just didn't, okay.
Is it tiny homes now? Are you talking like
Like small
240 square feet or 800 square feet?
More like 600.
Yeah, like just like kind of like slab homes.
Uh-huh.
And all of the homes that they make, this like company Yard Homes, they're prefabricated.
I'm thinking of tiny
Yeah.
homes like you see on TV where.
Yeah, it's like the ones on TV. It's
No.
like really small, very affordable. There's a video I could show you guys, but again, I didn't add. I'll bring it to the next month's agenda so we can like actually really discuss this. I just kind of want to put it on the agenda now and like get everyone's opinion. But the organization Yard Homes, they make a lot of like affordable houses for veterans. They've like already done a project up in Duluth, and they didn't really like either lot that we provided to them because they didn't want to spend $200,000 like developing it or connecting it to water or doing any of the work in that sense.
So you're proposing like a subdivision of,
Yeah, like a subdivision
mini,
of
yeah.
mini homes, like
Yeah,
10 homes.
yeah.
But we're like, okay, it'll take time to find like a good lot or a lot that you really like, or like grants to make the lot affordable. What if we started with something smaller? What if on a normal size lot or somewhere else we did 3 homes? And the guy who runs the company, his name is Jamie Solstead, he was like, instead of doing that, why don't we do ADUs? Like, I know that the zoning ordinance in Zumbrota says that like you can't have an accessory dwelling unit, and there are very specific rules. And I've like communicated that with him. I've made it clear over several emails, but he keeps on suggesting Zumbrota should consider an ADU. Sombrilla should consider changing like their ADU ordinance and policy. And I want to see how y'all felt about it, about just changing it or like why it stands the way it stands right now. And I will also like just forward all the information so we can talk about this next month.
Do they have any lots picked out, or did you say, or you don't know?
There were
anything?
2 lots that we picked out previously, but they just didn't like either of the lots. One was already, it was ready to shovel. There was like water and gas already set up, but they didn't like the location. And the other was like in this like wooded area. I can find the addresses right now. If you would like.
Do you know where
I'd
they
like to have
are? Do you know where they are on the map right away?
No, I would have to like check the address. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I know they like to have them in areas for these people that will be
Walking,
living here.
yeah.
They need it within a walkable
Right.
area, because a lot of them don't have cars, or they
Right.
don't have ways to get around.
I know, several years ago, didn't we kind of allow somewhat of like a mother-in-law attachment or, but
We
we
talked about that maybe a couple of years ago.
we felt it was important that it be attached rather than detached because of various issues or complications. But I mean, I think the way we left it was we'd always be willing to revisit it, but at the time there were just too many, maybe not necessarily unknowns, but some reservations, and maybe we wanted to possibly see how they were working or looking in other cities before we decided to just charge ahead with it. Maybe that was part of it.
I think our big discussion then was when they were going to attach them to another house, like to have the mother-in-law live there. But this would be totally,
Separate structure, yeah.
I know Rochester, I believe I read in the paper, they were looking at doing that in one neighborhood just to try it. And I'm curious to see how that would work.
they run up against with this type thing is that people don't want them in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
People don't want, they don't want them in their neighborhood. Oh,
Because we don't want this like new subdivision to be like a trailer park subdivision, you know, like
Right.
affordable homes for, you know, either veterans or like small families or like young couples, people who really do need like support and finding a good home, but it's still a nice neighborhood. And I did find the locations of the 2 lots. One is 819 West Fifth Street. And it's right off of Jefferson Drive.
Yeah, let's see.
West
Used to
Fifth
live.
Street.
Got it, I know.
Yeah,
Oh,
that corner.
Right on that, yep, it's
Yeah.
deep, it's kind
At the
of.
corner of
I
Jefferson.
always thought that'd be a
Fifth.
good spot to have some
That's a
housing.
small lot.
Yeah.
Well, if you get Henrik's, the whole thing in there, you got quite a few lots, small ones,
Going back in.
yeah.
and
Oh,
going
are you
back.
talking on the other side where the cornfield is? I was thinking of that,
Hayfield.
that little,
Oh,
yeah,
that little tiny lot.
that
No,
little
I'm talking,
spot that
I'm
Sonia
talking
Gunnis used to own.
that kitty corner there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's kind of like
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of deep.
long patch. I can like show you the
Oh, yeah.
lot right over
So
here.
it starts like
butts
you say,
in-
Tom, and then it goes
It
back
butts into
behind
the
by.
state garage,
Yes.
it butts
Yep,
into the
way-
state highway
way,
up
way
there.
back in there.
I was
Yep.
looking
Can I
at
just-
extending the street out to Terry Bucks.
Yeah, there you
That
go,
would
yeah,
be,
Terry's.
oh, that would be, I've looked at that.
this one's always been a problem.
To develop.
Right,
We
because this is
allowed,
where he's talking,
I
and then
think
you're
a
talking along
long
here.
time
right?
ago, we
like
granted
you say,
maybe
if
a
you put your
variance
street in.
for all sorts of variance on reduced setbacks to allow a smaller home there. But that's just been sitting vacant for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, in here too, maybe,
That
yeah.
Yeah.
corner lot next to where Ron Acres used to live.
Mhm.
That
And then the other
spot
lot,
is-
I don't know
Weird,
the
yeah.
exact address. It's like off of Pleasant Avenue, and it's
Okay.
still wooded. So
Yeah,
it's like this one.
That's down behind Willowmere, where all the expensive homes are.
Pleasant tucks in.
Back in there.
yeah,
Right behind.
Marvin's,
North.
And then this
Oh,
is where
right
it's
there.
on.
that back that way, yeah. That
Go
in
back
here.
in.
Yeah.
Huh?
That is
And
really
it's
wet,
wooded.
it's really wet ground.
Pleasant, behind
Yeah.
Pleasant.
Wouldn't want to put basements there because that's really wet
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah, right. When we moved to
East of
town, we
Pleasant?
looked at a house
Yeah,
there and I knew it was
east of
gonna be too wet. Didn't buy it.
Of course, where County 10 goes out of town,
Yeah.
those homes already got cracked basements from being so wet.
Yeah,
When they had the open house after one of those was spec home, it was cracked basement.
Wow.
And around Pleasant Avenue, it's almost like a slough between there and Willowmere.
When Zambrota's first settled, that was the old Zimbrota Slough. It was pastured and they cows would sink out there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So whatever housing that's like built out there, either that or they need to like, I guess like remove everything and then like no basements.
Oh, no basements for sure.
Well, do we, I'm not saying take a field trip, but if some cities have done this and they've done it in little pocket subdivisions, I suppose if we just get some photos, that's good enough, but.
Yeah, you were, somebody told me about Winona, down at City of Winona, they did something like this and it sounded really good. Right.
So would the ADU be larger than an old-fashioned mobile home trailer?
I don't think so.
Use it.
Oh, these houses are stick-built that I'm familiar with.
I'm just thinking the size.
Oh, what did you say?
Would it be similar to the size of an old mobile home trailer you'd see in a mobile home park?
Yeah, but they don't build them
Small,
long
small
and
ones.
narrow. I mean, they build them, so they're,
More square?
yeah.
She can show the video for our next meeting.
Yeah, it'd be good.
The ones, they're pretty tight. I
Sure.
would say they're smaller than,
And I'm trying to
Trailer.
see like what
Yeah, they're
the,
really small.
there's different versions of tiny. When we say tiny home, that's what you think of as the movies and
Yeah.
shows.
It's like the really,
They're
really tiny,
Do they ever
tiny.
put a second level on them?
Some of them do.
Some of them, they even build out of these big storage crates.
yeah, they're all,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
a lot of them are
Saw a lot of
prefabricated.
those in California.
But it's very dense. It's very densely populated, and the big drawback is that people really, with the, valuable homes, really don't want them.
No, they'd have to definitely be a separate area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
The
Maybe-
houses I'm looking at, they're 15 by 38
Okay.
or 50, between 15 by 29 smallest and then 15 by 34 and then 15 by 38. The size of the homes.
Yeah, they're fully furnished.
About
Okay.
600 square feet.
Yeah, and that's
They're pretty small.
more than I was thinking of originally, so.
Yeah, half the size of my garage.
I mean, that looks nice. I don't know if I
Oh,
can
yeah,
say
they're
that.
nice, but it's not real big, right?
No,
Doesn't look real big.
this one's smaller than that.
And they're often finding that they're still costing between $175,000 and $200,000 to build these things. And they think now that that's affordable. That's the government's
Yeah.
thinking. Really?
That's just where we are right
That's what it
now.
is.
Yeah, and like
That's
with
the
the
cost.
recession too. But I think their price range is to sell the homes, they sell it for like 110, 150, like somewhere between there. And then they expect there to be like some subsidization from their like corporate sponsors. I know they work with like Wells Fargo and a few different organizations. And when they start building here, we want them to also work with Habitat for Humanity
Mhm.
or with like the Housing Council, I think it's called. We're just trying to like find as much grant money and everything to like offset the cost on the city or on them, so we can sell the houses for even cheaper.
If they would sell for 115,000, would the people own the land under them, or would it be a
Well, I think
program where
the
they
city,
would own
that's
it?
like a good question, I'm not sure. The city owns a lot. And then I believe that they would buy the lot, but they want to really encourage like home ownership and then autonomy. So I feel like they wouldn't, like, why would they keep the land? So
Well, they have programs where
Yeah.
the city owns a lot or the government owns a lot, and then the people just, I don't know if they have to pay that back, but they don't own the lot, and then they just own the house, so they can just buy, maybe they can afford $115,000. That's fine for the structure, but then the city is gonna own the,
Yeah.
typical what? That small lot wouldn't be, but $40,000 or $50,000 lot.
I know in Palm Springs, much of those houses in Palm Springs, they don't own the land underneath them.
Yeah.
The Indian tribe owns them and they have to pay a rent every year.
Mhm. Yeah, so it might be something like that.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the city could get the taxes off of the.
Yeah.
After putting in water and sewer and.
Mhm.
I like that idea more than the accessory dwelling units to add one onto an existing lot. I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if we go with the first idea of like building like a set of homes or having a subdivision, we either need to make these two lots more attractive to this organization or like offer a better lot because they said we have good lots, but they're not great. Yeah.
There's some kind of a land grant, I know, that goes with things like that they don't have to buy the land. They can just round up the money for the structure and then they, however they handle the land.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I will bring more materials for the next meeting. Is there anything that I should discuss with, or any questions you guys have for the developer? And you can come up with them over the next one. You
But
can
I
even
know that
current.
this is a coming thing because housing is so short.
Yeah.
And if they can get places for people to come into the city and buy what they can afford, then we get, of course, more people into the city, so,
The one concern I think you mentioned is, it ends up being like a trailer court.
yeah.
With the negative connotations that brings.
If there's some, if there's like a main, like Jefferson Drive, a main road that's city maintained, and then there's some private drives or private streets or narrow roads that serve some of these smaller subdivisions, would that all be city, wouldn't be city maintained, not up to city specs, and then the property owners would have to share on the maintenance and the
HOA
snow
kind of
removal?
thing.
Is that, I guess that's one question for the developer. How do
HOA
we,
kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
they form an association,
Mhm.
have to pay for that themselves versus the city having city wide
Yeah.
streets. I don't know how they
Yeah.
propose
That'd be a way
it.
the developer could save some money too, then, is not building the streets to city specs.
And I can also like pull their conditional use permit from Duluth to see how they planned that neighborhood or how many houses they put there. But good question.
I've got a lot of information on those type developments. I get a magazine, it's called On Common Ground, and they promote these, they really promote them because it makes affordable housing for those that can't buy a $250,000. Even in Zumbrota, anything on the market that's less than
Crazy.
$250, it really isn't nice. It's just,
It's getting out of hand.
totally, right. Yeah. And now with energy costs going up, for heating and electricity, and even my taxes is getting up close to $5,000, and that's not easy for
Nope.
some people.
For most people.
Yeah. I have to plan.
And you don't like surprises.
Pardon?
You don't like surprises.
No,
I can, like,
don't
pull
let
Like
the
your
surprise
furnace
every year.
goes out.
Oh, gosh. I keep a reserve, that's for sure.
These are size looking into these things too.
Okay, so they said 19 cities in the metro area
Okay.
and then Northfield and Duluth.
Oh, nice.
So I think that we would be,
Our
It's
town
been
because I
this
don't
way
think
for so
our
long.
even if it's, yeah, I feel like it would be the first like rural.
By now we might-
Yeah, I think we're probably done, officially done with the meeting.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second, whatever you need to do.
Aye.
Aye.